Hello my friends, welcome back. It's Nat Walsh. I have a slimline card today. We're going to do a little bit of watercolor, which is something I haven't done for a little while. So I've got the Stampendous Agapanthus stamp here. It's so pretty. We've got some Gansai Tambi watercolor, which I haven't used for quite a while. I've just got some Uniquely Creative. It was a sample watercolor cardstock that was given to me, so we're going to have a play and use some of that up. I'm stamping down my stamp with some paper rose. We're going to have a play with this because the paper rose is meant to be all good for alcohol inks, for watercolor, so yeah, we're gonna have a play with it. The colors that I'm going to be using today are, this one is sap green, it's number 53. I then am going to come in with an olive green, which is 54, and this is all out of the bigger pack. Now I have two different packs. The bigger pack is a 36 pack. Then I have another one because it's not the biggest pack. There is a bigger pack that you can get. Then I have a little pack of, what do we got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. A little pack of 12, which has sort of the in-betweens. So I go between the two colors, but all of the four colors that I'm using today are all part of the bigger 36 pack. So the sap green, we've got the olive green. So what I'm just doing, I'm putting the color down in the darkest position, rinsing off my brush there and using just clean water to move it out. If it is a little bit too dark, I started putting the shadow on the wrong side. If it is a little bit too dark, which you're going to see me do a lot today, especially with the background, then all I do is dab it off with a little bit like a paper towel, or I've got a microfiber cloth there. And we're going to do that a lot with the background because I am keeping with the four colors. That's all we're going to do today. It's pretty much the same sort of deal that I put it in the darkest area and then move it out with, it was quite a lot of paint there, move it out with clean water. Once that is all dry, so I just dabbed it then. Once it's all dry, we're going to go back through again with the sap green. Now this did dry really quickly, so I didn't have too much of a problem with it. There was only a couple of times where I actually physically stopped, moved to something else, and I got a croaky voice, hang on, there we go, and moved to something else and came back to it later on. So this is a sap green, and it's the same thing. Put some color down, rinse my brush off, dab off any excess water, and then go back in and spread that out. Now, depending on how much, when I get to a bit more finer detail, I will use very little water and just try it and move it out a tiny bit. So the more water you're going to have, say we're dabbing off a lot, the more water you're going to have, it's going to be a lot more free flowing. So we just sort of use a little bit. Now I'm going to put a lot of color onto, it's not a palette, it's just got some cardstock in a plastic pocket, but we're going to use it, we're going to go with the flow. I've really watered this down. So this one is, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this properly, Cerulean Blue, which is number 36. And then the darker color that we're going to use is Indigo. I'm using this brush here is a number 2 brush. The smaller one, I'm not too sure. Gotta have a look. I didn't write down my colors, my numbers for my paints. My not pencils, they're not pencils, Nat. They're brushes. It's a number 1, so it's a very, very small that we're going to play with. So I'm just layering up the color here. I'm still working with the, well, I am now still working with the cerulean blue. I'd check the name of it again. Just making sure that we've got, so you can see the first layer is going to be pretty light. We're just making sure we've got enough depth of color before I come in. I mean, the indigo is really dark, so I'm going to use it really sparingly. And I haven't done it for so long, I'm a little bit out of practice. So some of these had a bit more of a blob in it. So yet again, that's where you're going to see a little bit more of me dabbing it off. I'm just using a tiny little bit of water to spread it around. Getting clean water, drying that off a fair bit so I pick up the color. So if you dab it, see that I had way too much. If the more water you use, you're going to move it around a little bit. Now I'm no expert in this, but if you dab off a lot of your excess water, you can actually pick up the color and move it around a little bit more. So I'm trying to keep the darkest color like down to the very tip. As I said, I was having a little bit of an issue just with not doing it for so long, because we all know, if you watch my channel if you're new here, hi. If you've watched my channel before, you know I'm a little bit of a Copic person. I love my Copics, I love my colouring, but you know, it's good to branch into your other areas and have a play. But the only problem is when you try and do a lot of Copics, so try and do more often, I tend to, I don't know, maybe this is just me, I tend to do a little bit more trying to blend it in rather than letting the watercolor go, and that is the key. I didn't have too much of a problem with this. It was more that I just had a really tiny little brush and I was trying to, I was just trying to see what happens, trying to work with it. So this is the same blue as I mentioned to you. So we're going to add a lot of water here, and then we're going to actually remove a lot of it when we come off. So again, I'm putting it down where I want it to be the darkest, blending out with some nice clean water, I should say. And what I'm going to do is, if it's too much like there, just dab it off. Sometimes that leaves a little bit of a line with just towards the very tip of, like, see how I went back in there? There was a weird line just where I dabbed it off. So I'm just softening that again. So we're going to end up with a really nice soft color, and we're going to work through and just do it in little sections and take our time and dab it off. So I got distracted. I went out to the kitchen to do something for my husband, but we're back. I'm going to cut off some of this because it's going to take me a little while, but you can clearly see what I'm doing. Just going through, dabbing, dotting, putting paint down, putting water, dabbing, putting more down. You get the idea. You get the idea. So, what can I say? There's not much I can say. I'm going to use, saved by the holographic cardstock, I'm going to use some more holographic cardstock. Now I used that the other week. Now, because it is so pretty, I've trimmed out the center of the cardstock because I'm going to squirrel it away. So we've got the mat down onto the card base. I've tapped that all down. I probably forgot to press play because, you know, that's what I do sometimes. So that's all matted up. We're going to glue that down. press it down, make sure it's all a thing. And so the holographic cardstock's going to come up with the colors and pick up the blues. This is Uniquely Creative Card Making Essentials 2. They've got a 1 and they've got a 2. The Stamp Out, they've got matching dies that go with it. There's a third one that's a circle one, but that's mostly for cut arts rather than a stamp. So we've got Thanks for Making Me Smile. We're going to do a little bit of surgery and trim that all off. The smile has a little bit of a messy embossing, so I'm just going to use a knife and just scrape some of that away and just clean it up a little bit, just a tiny bit. I am going to use some foam mounts to raise those up, and I was getting distracted by the holographic cardstock because it's so pretty. You see what I mean? Like the other card that I did once before, that was very pinks tones, whereas this one's picking up, it has a little wow factor, and it certainly shines, but it doesn't, like if you look at it there, it doesn't stand out quite as much as say like a black or something like that, but it is so pretty. So yeah, I've done it before where I've die cut down on scraps. I've die cut something out of the middle of a matte layer. And I have done that quite regularly because, you know, you end up with all these little pieces, and I've just spilled all my sequins, little pieces, you know, everywhere. But if you try and cut it out of the card base, the center of the card base, no one's going to know. Well, you guys all know because I just told you, but you know, no one's really going to know. I've got some Uniquely Creative clear sequins. I did have a look at their website and they don't have them there, but clear sequins, you can get them lots of different places. I have the link down below to my blog, which also has all the information of where I got everything except the holographic cardstock. So that's my card. I hope you are well. Take care. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.